25 days from today is the day. It's Christmas. You excited? I'm excited. It's okay to talk about Christmas in September. It's not October yet. So it's just good for us to get our heads around the fact that it gets closer every day and we need to get ready. But I want to talk about Christmas because I think it's important for you to know why I get so excited. And it has nothing to do with the day itself. It doesn't have anything to do with the presents or the meals or my grandma's cookies, although that's all good stuff. The reason I love Christmas so much is because of today. And tomorrow and the next day, it's the anticipation of Christmas that makes it so much fun. And your kids may never articulate that to you. They may never tell you that, but that's true of them too. It's the getting ready. It's the I can't wait. It's this promise that there's something great just a little bit ahead of us. And if we have something great just a little bit ahead of us, well, then we can get through today. We can take a step through and navigate our way through today because we know that it gets us one step closer. That's what makes Christmas so much fun. And for me, Christmas and the anticipation of it provides a living definition of hope. Hope is one of those words that we talk about a lot. Whether you go to church every week or you don't, hope is something that we all want. We all recognize a need for, but we're not always sure what it is. Differentiating between hoping as a verb and hope as a noun, this thing that we can possess and have, well, that's a little bit different of an idea, and it's hard to get our head around what it actually means. And so what I want to do together for this morning is unpack it a little bit, because I think a lot of us are feeling hopeless, not because there's no hope, but because we define our hope in the wrong thing. And I think if we could get a right picture of what that word means, what's available to us, you and I may actually begin to experience a thriving life. It won't be, I'm just going to get through my day, I'm just going to get by. It'll become this way of living that's different. And the truth is, for me, at the end of my day, I believe what sets us apart as Christians, or at least what should set us apart, is the hope that we have, the hope that we possess. So we look at this one verse every week in this series, Jeremiah 17. And that word hope appears right in the middle of it. So we need to know what God's getting at. He says, "But blessed are those who trust in the Lord and have made the Lord their hope and confidence." What does it mean for us to make God our hope, this one that we can't see, this one that we can't touch? Because a lot of us, our hope is a big house. Our hope is a nice retirement, a great vacation, a Saturday where we don't have to mow the lawn. Our hope is these things that we can reach out and get our arms around. And here in Jeremiah, we hear our hope should be in a person, in a being, in someone instead of something. And ultimately what we're going to get to today is one big idea that I hope you can carry with you out of this room and into every day of your week and the rest of your month and year. Is this idea that you and I have the ability to live knowing every day is part of something bigger. Every single day, every single moment, every single second of those moments is a part of something bigger. That we aren't actually alone just trying to survive. We aren't actually by ourselves isolated. That this all adds up to something. Or better said, someone. If you want to follow along in your own Bible today, we're going to look at two components from letters that Paul wrote to two different places. And they're not just the only two places that you'll find these in his letters. Almost every letter that he ever wrote, Paul talks about hope, and he defines it for us, and he paints this beautiful picture of what it actually is. So we're going to start in Ephesians chapter 1. So this is Paul's letter to a town called Ephesus and all of the Christians there. And God speaks to their heart and our heart through it. Listen to what it says. It says, "And this is the plan." In case you're not sure about what's going on and where this is all headed, Here it is, plain and simple. Here's the plan. At the right time, he will bring everything together under the authority of Christ. Everything in heaven and on earth. Furthermore, because we're united with Christ, we have received an inheritance from God, for he chose us in advance. And he makes everything work out according to his plan. Did you catch the word that repeated at least 3 times? Everything. Not just some things. Not just the good things. Not just a few things. Not just a couple things. Everything. I can't think of one thing that's not a part of everything. And so we read through this, and here God says, I'm going to bring everything together. I'm going to make everything work out. There's not one thing that's random. There's not one thing that's isolated and doesn't fit. What we start to get at here, and what Paul starts to point us towards, is this idea of a cosmic dislocation. You've maybe heard of this with a shoulder or a finger, or I don't know what other bones you can dislocate, but it happens, right? Parts of us come apart. And what we get at here is that this has happened with the universe. All of creation, there was this rupture. There was this dislocation when things came apart. And it was you and me, humanity. We kind of broke this thing up. There was this picture, beautiful, perfect. And then sin comes into the world and it falls apart. It fragments. It's not unlike what happens with a puzzle, right? I know not everybody does these, but what's so fun about a puzzle is they tell you what it's supposed to look like right at the start. They say, here's the image. You just need to put it together. And what is so interesting is at the beginning there's this image, and then this thing happens where man decides they want to be king, and all of creation and all of the picture just fragments. And you and I, we feel this every day, don't we? Every single day, you Christian or not, there's this part of you that goes, something's not right. You turn on the news, you read the news, you get on Twitter, you get on whatever it is that you go to for your information, and you go, that's not right. This is not right. Something is broken in our world. Something is broken in us. Not unlike some of you in this room right now that are having a very hard time with this mess. You're like, you're going to clean that up, right? You can't just walk around on that the rest of this service, right? Like some of you are like, you keep talking, I'll clean it up. Right? Because there's something in us that doesn't like chaos. We would rather go, okay, if these all fit together, let's put them together. And the good news for us is that God says, I'm about to. This is my promise to you, is I'm going to take all of this brokenness and all of this fragmentation and all of these pieces that have been dislocated, and I'm going to make sense of them. I'm going to show you the picture on the box. Now here's what's crazy. When you go back to Ephesians or you read the verses that we're going to go on to in our time together, you realize something very crucial about the picture on the box. It's not you, and it's not me, and it's not our happy little house with a picket fence and 2.5 kids with a dog named Fido. The picture on the box is Jesus. That the grand total of all of this is Jesus. Lately, I've been realizing that I underestimate and underappreciate the importance of him. We get to Easter and we get to Christmas and the baby and the cross and the empty tomb, and that is what our foundation of all things is built on. Don't get me wrong. But it's more. He is more. He is the sum of all things. This symbol is the Greek symbol for sum total. If you're a math geek, you know that symbol well. If you're a spreadsheet person, you know that this is an important function on your spreadsheet, right? Here's what's interesting about the Greek way of doing math. Let's just go back to our school days. Now, they're changing math. I don't know how you change math, but they've figured out a way to change math these days. But when I was a kid in school, we did math one way. You take all of the numbers and you stack them up. You remember that? You stack them up, and then at the bottom you put a line, and underneath the line goes the sum, the total. You add them all together, bottom line, sum. That's actually backwards from how they used to do math with the Greeks. The Greeks would use this symbol, and you know where they would put the sum? At the top. Because not only was that number the combined total of all of the numbers underneath it, it also helped make sense of all those numbers. It's as if to say, here's where it's going to all end up. One piece all put together. So now that you know that, all of these pieces can make sense and be oriented to that one number. And so Jesus being the sum total, the one number, this is when God takes all of the pieces and he starts putting them back together. So not only do they end up coming together and creating this image, but when they're individually broken and separated, they still make sense because they fall under Jesus. The totals at the top, everything under the total points to the total. All of these pieces, they're not the whole picture, they're not the whole image, but they are pieces of it. Now here's what's challenging. You and I, we hold our piece and we go, I don't like this shape. And you go, I don't like these colors. And we go, this doesn't make any sense. And God goes, well, it's part of something bigger. It's not the whole picture. Your day, your life, your work week can be lived knowing that every day is part of something bigger. This is not the whole picture. God is not done bringing all things together. But it's so important that we realize none of these are by themselves. They add up to something more. So none of these are in vain. None of these are purposeless or pointless. They're a part of this picture that God is putting together that one day we will get to see fully. And I think each of us will go, oh, I get that piece now. So Paul doesn't talk about this in just Ephesians. He also wrote a letter to the Christians in Rome. And he came back to this theme, and this is one that a lot of you have memorized over the years. In fact, will you raise your hand? Do you have Romans 8:28 memorized? Here's the danger of memorizing Scripture. I said that out loud. Make sure you hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying we shouldn't memorize Scripture. But one of the parts of memorizing Scripture that's always been hard for me is once I memorize it, it loses its teeth. It's just this thing I can regurgitate quickly. So here's the challenge for you right now. If you've memorized this, you're not going to read it with me. You're just going to say it in your head and be done with it. I want to walk through it because this is one of the most incredible, sometimes misused, but most incredible verses in all of the Bible. Romans 8:28. And we know that God causes everything, not some things, not a few things, not the good things, everything, to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. Now here's what jumps out to me, and I think we all have to hold on to every day, all day, is that when we talk about all of these pieces coming together and making sense and this image of Jesus, God is causing that. You see, sometimes in my own head, because I'm me, I think God has this like cosmic job description that obligates him to do good things. And I sometimes think God gets tricked by me because I call myself a Christian and I go to church and I work at a church and I do all these things, so he like begrudgingly has to do good for me, and we miss it when we think that way, because what Romans says is that God causes it. He does it on purpose. This is not like optimistic evolutionary thought. This is a promise from God that this is all moving in the direction that he set it to move in, and the pieces are going to come together, and there will be sense in this, and Jesus will win. And he's doing that on purpose, not because he's obligated to, but because he wants to. He causes it. And it says he causes everything to work together for the good of those who love him. Now, I love the book of Revelation. It's not one you should read before bed. But sometimes it's easy as a Christian to get real caught up on Revelation. Because sometimes I just like to think about the end when I win. And I'm careful with those words, because when I start thinking this way, it's not about Jesus winning. It's about me winning and everybody finally realizing that they were indeed wrong. And I get to get out of here, and it's over. So I live my life expecting calamity and destruction. And just waiting around every corner is something bad, because that's where this is all headed. Bad. We have not read who God is. Because what I read is about a God who causes everything to work together for the good of those who love him. So even though there might be a piece here and there that's bad, or a piece here and there that's scary, or a piece here and there that's confusing, eventually this becomes good. Eventually this becomes Jesus in charge, ruling all things, and every knee bowing and every tongue confessing, and hope comes near. Now, where we get sideways a little bit on this verse sometimes is that somebody like me will stand in front of somebody like you and say, you should come to Jesus because he works everything out for the good of those who love him. Period. Translation, Jesus will make your life sunshine and rainbows all the time. And then you go to work tomorrow and you go, he's a liar. This part's important. Those who love God and are called according to his purposes, not my purposes. Remember, we have this delusion that we're the picture on the box, that we're what God's going to put together. And God goes, wait a minute, I'm God. You're not. This is my purposes, not yours. Which means this odd-shaped piece that you wish wasn't yours has a purpose. You would trade it, but God goes, no. If I don't have this piece, the picture isn't right. You see, what we have to come to grips with is we are looking at pieces individually. We're up close to them, right in front of them, examining their shape, thinking of how we could rework it. But that's not God. God sees everything from a far away vantage point. Not because he's far away, but because he's God. And you come all the way back to the book of Isaiah, where God, through Isaiah, starts to describe himself. And the words are so powerful and help us understand just how this works. He says, my thoughts, they're nothing like your thoughts. Thank you, Lord. And my ways are far beyond anything you could imagine. For just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. So God doesn't see just your piece, he sees their piece too. and your neighbor's peace, and this person's peace who's on the other side of the planet that you've never met nor will meet. And he sees all of this brokenness and all of this rupture and all of this dislocation, and he knows how to put it back together in the shape of Jesus. So when we're sitting in our cubicle tomorrow, or we're standing at the bus stop getting our child on the bus, or we're stopping by Starbucks wondering, are we ever going to meet that someone? You can do each of those moments, each of your days this week, knowing that every day is a part of something bigger. That your peace is not the whole picture. That your day is not the whole week. And if we could learn and lean into and live into the vantage point from which God sees all of this, and the sum total that everything is falling up underneath, and the picture that's on the box, you and I, we start to thrive. Because we know there's more to the story than today. And what has to happen in order for that to become our reality is we may have to change the picture that we're hoping for. Like I said, most of us, our hope looks like this: a cute little house, or a bigger one, with a white picket fence, 2.5 kids, a great dog, and a Corvette in the driveway. That's our hope. That's what we go to work for every day, all day, and more. Because if we can get there, if we can achieve that, if we can arrive at that, well, then it'll all be good. That's our hope, right? This is what Apple does to me every single year. They tell me we've got a new shiny phone and it's better than yours. And so I start hoping that one day I get a new iPhone. Now here's what happens. Eventually I finagle my way into getting one. And about a week later I go, this hasn't changed my life at all. It does the same things that the other one did. And you know, all the people that I talked to that worked so hard for retirement, and it was like countdown to get to this place where I just get to sit in my house all day and drive my car all day and all that. You know what they tell me every single time? I'm busier than I've ever been. I'm more stressed out than I've ever been. And I'm like, what happened to the golden carrot at the end of the road, the thing that we're all hoping to get to? Yeah, it's kind of overrated. Not because they're depressed, but just because they've realized that was the wrong thing maybe to put their hope in. Getting stuff may not be the right thing because someday that thing moves on to something better. What's so great about Jesus, last time I checked, was he's the same yesterday and today and will be forever. So I'm not aiming at a moving target. I can plant my feet firmly on that hope. But for some of us, it's not those big wild dreams. It's not one day down the road. It's about tomorrow. I'm hoping I have enough money to pay my bills. That's what I'm hoping for. My hope is that I will get to order a pizza this weekend because I have enough money left over in my bank account. My hope is that I can figure out a way to get my kids to school and get to work on time. Right? Like, it's not these big grandiose things. It's just, I'm trying to get through my day, and we put our hope in checking a few things off the list. For some of us, it's relational. It's not tangible at all. For some of us, we get invited to a family party, and the first thought that goes through our head is, I hope my ex is not there. In other words, if I go to this party and so is not there, then everything will be good. And then you get there and the other so-and-so was there. Right? Like, we do this all the time. We put our hope in things that are constantly shifting and moving. And we get closer and closer to that hope and we go, wait a minute, these pieces, they're not adding up to that picture. And we try to cram them together to make it work in our image instead of in his image. And we wonder why we're frustrated. What Jesus has called us to is a whole new picture, something different. Him. This is the simplest sermon you're ever going to hear. The picture on the box is not the American dream. The picture on the box is Jesus, the Son of the living God. And when we talk about all things working together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose, this is what God would say: my purpose is the restoration and reconciliation of all people and things. So I sent my Son. He's my purpose. And so when I bring all things together, that's what this is about. And so I live every day going, okay, this piece adds up to something bigger. My piece adds up to someone bigger. The question that I want you to wrestle with for a little while, that I've been tackling all week long, is pretty simple. What's the picture I'm dreaming about? When you close your eyes and you think of your 3-year plan, your 5-year plan, your retirement plan, your tomorrow plan, what is the picture? For some of you, it's Chipotle and Wheel of Fortune. For some, it's a Hawaii vacation. For others, it's a big fancy wedding. For some, it's high school graduation. I believe what Jesus calls us to is take that picture and put it in the right place. Because its place is not at the top. It's not the sum total of your life. It's somewhere underneath Jesus. Another way to come at this would be, how many variables are there in this equation? In other words, how many things have to go right in order for your hope to become your reality? Here's the cheat sheet. If there's more than one variable, there's too many. Because some of us, here's how it goes. The stock market has to go just right. I have to not get sick for so many days so that I can save up my sick days and retire a year and a half early, because that will work well with the stock market, and then I'll be able to do this. And I have to meet so-and-so on such and such a day in such and such a place, and we're going to fall in love, and it's going to become better. And we take all of these variables and we say, if they all go right, or we'll say things like, if the stars align, then my hope will be realized. Isn't it easier to go, I got one variable, Jesus, done. He's my hope. He's it. He's all I got. He's my everything. One variable. To me, that's hope. That takes me away from panic and striving and scrimping and scraping and begging and pleading to, I got Jesus. Last time I checked, he walked out of a tomb and he's alive today. So he's still doing this. He's still putting this together. He's not done. One day my piece will make sense. It'll fit. Last question. Is this something I can achieve? Because if it's something you can achieve, that's not hopeful, that's tactical. That's you just accomplishing some little goal that you set. And I'm not talking about goals. I'm not talking about life goals or bucket lists. I'm talking about real hope that changes the way you navigate every single day, that gives you assurance that Christmas is coming. And since it's coming, today's okay. You know what I realized? January 25th, not that exciting. Living here in Chicagoland, it's going to be snowy and stupid cold on January 25th. But when I understand January 25th in relation to December 25th, that means Christmas is 11 months closer. You see, I can live every day knowing that it's part of something bigger. It's related to something else, that it's not by itself. And that gives me peace. Here's reality. There is no peace in your peace. You know that, right? No matter what you cram into this little thing, you're not going to find peace in it. You'll start to find peace when it starts to make sense on such a more grander scale. Your little piece is not the whole picture. It's a piece of the picture. Now, because I don't want us to ever be a community of Christ followers that sit in here and think about this and yay, it sounds good, and then we go home. We want to give you something to help you remember this. On your way out today, there are buckets of little puzzle pieces, and they have the word hope written on them. And here's what we hope this does for you. Is that every time you see this thing, you're reminded that my hope is not in this piece. My hope is in the picture that God is putting together. My hope is in the fact that this piece is not the whole picture. And so I would encourage you to put this in your wallet. It doesn't take up a lot of real estate. Or put it in your pocket. And when it gets soggy and flimsy, just go buy a new puzzle. You'll have 1,000 of them for yourself. But put it in your car, put it on your desk, put it somewhere. Because what this will allow you to do is to start beating it into your head. That my hope is that today is about something bigger, and that bigger is Jesus. That this isn't it. There's more. And you know what's so cool about being a part of a Christian community or part of a church? Is that right now there are 400 some odd pieces. All kinds of them, everywhere. And you know what? We're all different shapes. And we've all got a little bit different shade on the one side. But when we come together, we start to go, you know what? My piece connects with that piece. And I'm not alone. You see, I really do believe Christian community is a part of us growing closer to Jesus. I think that's why it's so important to be here. Because you get to rub shoulders against the other pieces. And you start to see a little bit more of the picture that God's painting. And what this does, I'll leave you with this thought. What this does is changes your blahs and ughs. Because this is most of our life, right? This is tomorrow and probably 6 out of the 7 days ahead of you. It's just blah and ugh. Get through, survive, get by. But when we understand that that blah and that ugh are a part of something bigger, they start to make a little more sense. And instead of running from this or being scared of this or overwhelmed by this, we may get actually a little excited because Christmas is coming and this will matter. It starts to give direction to our life. You know, that's why anticipation about Christmas, it helps make sense of everything. That's why your neighbor will spend half of their Saturday in the front yard putting lights that belong inside outside and taking a tree that belongs outside inside. Why do they do that? Well, because it's Christmas time. Why does my grandma start baking cookies next month? Because it's Christmas time. Why do we spend money like crazy on Amazon? Because it's Christmas time. And you start to see everything starts to make sense and adds up to this one idea. Your stuff starts to add up to one idea and make sense. And it gives you direction, and it brings out your imagination. And you might smile a little more and people will go, what's wrong with them? How are they thriving at a time like this? Because they have hope. Will you pray with me? Lord, where would we be without you? Honestly, Jesus, I cannot imagine living my life one single day without you and the promise that you give, the hope that you give. Lord, what's so crazy is that I've spent most of my life thinking that my hope is that one day I get to escape. that one day I get to go to heaven and be done with earth. But you left heaven to come to earth and bring hope. Which means, God, if I'm going to be anything like you, I have to bring hope wherever I go. That I shouldn't throw my arms up and say, this is all hopeless. No, it's hopeful. We're hopeful because of you. And so my prayer for my friends this week and for me this week is that we wouldn't just agree today, but we would agree every day. That you are our hope. And we can get through whatever we're going to get through or go through this week because it adds up to something more. Help us to live that every day. Lord, as we get ready to end our time together, we just want to sit for a couple more minutes. And I'm going to pray that you would use the words of this next few minutes to penetrate our heart and fill it with the hope that comes with you. Because we know that you aren't done. You are alive, and we love you. Amen.